Hi everyone, I'm Kelly Robbins, a registered nutritionist. On this channel, we focus on making nutrition clear, practical, and sustainable. No trends, no extremes, just science-backed guidance you can actually use in everyday life. Today's video covers a health concern that becomes especially common as we move past the age of 60. So if you wake up feeling stiff, lightheaded, or notice your heart racing before you've even gotten out of bed, you might assume it's just part of getting older. After all, people tell us all the time that aging comes with aches, slower mornings, and a heart that doesn't quite feel as steady as it used to. But what if I told you that for many people, these symptoms have very little to do with age, and a lot to do with what's in your mug? What if the drink you reach for every morning, the one you've been told is healthy, comforting, or energizing, is quietly pulling water out of your body and forcing your heart to work harder than it needs to? Today, I want to show you one of the simplest changes you can make, starting today, to support your heart without medication, without supplements, and without complicated routines. You'll learn which 5 everyday kitchen drinks quietly thicken your blood, lower your circulating fluid, and strain your heart, especially after 60. I'll explain the why, the what, and the how, and I'll show you easy swaps that let you keep enjoying your favorite drinks without dehydrating yourself. And stay with me until the end because I'll share one simple rule that makes this effortless. No tracking, no counting, no guilt. As we age, one of the most important changes in the body happens quietly, and most people never hear about it. Your thirst signal weakens, not disappears, but dulls. When you were younger, thirst showed up early. Your body nudged you to drink before dehydration ever became a problem. But after 60, that signal often arrives late, after your body is already running low on fluid. So you don't drink because you need to. You drink because it's habit, or because you want flavor, warmth, or stimulation. And that's where trouble begins. When you're even mildly dehydrated, your blood volume drops. There's simply less fluid circulating through your vessels. To compensate, your heart has to beat faster and harder to maintain blood pressure and oxygen delivery. This is why dehydration can cause a racing or pounding heart, lightheadedness when standing, fatigue that feels sudden and unexplained, a sense of internal pressure or unease. Here's an analogy that makes this clear. Imagine trying to push water through a straw. Now imagine trying to push syrup through that same straw. When your blood volume drops, your blood behaves more like syrup than water. It becomes more concentrated, thicker, harder to move. Your heart doesn't like that. Caffeine makes this worse by increasing urine output and masking thirst. Sugar pulls water out of your bloodstream to dilute glucose. Sodium holds fluid in the wrong places, outside cells instead of where your heart needs it. But the biggest mistake most people make? They replace water with flavored drinks all day long. Coffee counts as hydration. Tea counts. Juice counts. Protein shakes count. Except they don't. And that's what we need to talk about next. Let's begin with something familiar, something so routine that it rarely invites a second thought. Most mornings unfold the same way. You wake up, perhaps a little stiff, perhaps still half in yesterday. You shuffle into the kitchen, guided more by habit than intention. You reach for the same mug you've used for years, the one that fits your hand just right. You fill it with coffee or tea or maybe warm cocoa. Some mornings it's a smoothie, something that feels productive, healthy, responsible. You don't pause to think about it. You don't question the choice. Why would you? These drinks are comforting. They're familiar. They signal the start of the day. Some of them are even associated with health and wellness. And here's something important that needs to be said clearly. These drinks are not bad. They are not the enemy. Coffee, tea, juice, cocoa, and smoothies all have a place in a balanced life. But there is a quiet problem that shows up more often after the age of 60, and it doesn't announce itself with drama or urgency. It creeps in slowly, almost politely. When these drinks begin to replace water, especially in the morning or between meals, they can gradually pull water out of the body instead of replenishing it. And when that happens, the heart pays the price, not in a sudden or catastrophic way, but steadily, subtly, over time. Today, we're going to walk through 5 very common kitchen drinks, ones almost everyone over 60 consumes, and talk in plain language about what they do inside the body, why their effects change with age, and how to continue enjoying them without placing unnecessary stress on your heart. There will be no fear here, no extremes, no pressure to give anything up, just awareness and a smarter order of drinking. Before we talk about the drinks themselves, it's important to understand why hydration works differently after 60. Aging doesn't change the need for water, but it does change how the body manages it. 3 quiet shifts tend to occur. First, the thirst mechanism becomes less reliable. You don't feel thirsty until you're already running low on fluid. Second, blood volume tends to decrease slightly. There is simply less fluid circulating through the blood vessels. Third, the heart compensates for this lower volume by beating faster or more forcefully to maintain adequate pressure and circulation. This compensation is subtle, but it's meaningful. It's why dehydration in older adults often shows up as a racing heart, lightheadedness, fatigue, or a vague sense of internal unease rather than obvious thirst. And here's the part most people miss. You don't have to feel dehydrated to be dehydrated. You can sip drinks all day and still be low on usable water. That's where the first drink comes in. Coffee is often the very first thing people consume in the morning, before water, before food, sometimes before they're fully awake. For many, coffee isn't just a beverage, it's a ritual. It's comfort. It's familiarity. It's the signal that the day has officially begun. And that emotional role matters. But physiologically, coffee is a stimulant, and stimulants have consequences, especially on an empty, dehydrated system. Caffeine increases urine output, particularly when consumed first thing in the morning, and it also suppresses the sensation of thirst. That second effect is crucial. When you drink coffee, your body may actually need water, but caffeine tells your brain that everything is fine. So you don't feel thirsty, you don't reach for water, yet fluid loss is still happening. After a night of sleep, the body is already mildly dehydrated. You've lost water through breathing and through the skin, and you haven't taken in any fluid for hours. When coffee is the first thing you introduce, that fluid deficit deepens. Blood volume drops further, and the heart responds by beating faster to keep circulation stable. This is why so many people experience jitteriness, lightheadedness, or a racing heart after coffee, especially as they get older. What many describe as morning anxiety is often not anxiety at all. It's dehydration combined with stimulation. The heart is responding to low blood volume and caffeine at the same time. When you're younger, the body adapts quickly. The kidneys concentrate fluid more efficiently, and the cardiovascular system handles rapid changes with ease. After 60, those adjustments slow down. Blood pressure can swing more easily, and the heart becomes less tolerant of sudden shifts. This is why a coffee habit that felt fine for decades can suddenly start causing symptoms. The solution, however, is not to give up coffee. It's to change the sequence. Drinking 1 full glass of water before your first cup makes an enormous difference. Limiting coffee to 1 or 2 smaller cups, or switching to half-caffeinated versions if you're sensitive, further reduces strain. Coffee consumed after hydration feels completely different. People often notice steadier energy, fewer palpitations, and a calmer heart. It's the same coffee, just a different order. Tea is often perceived as gentler, and in many ways it is. It's warm, soothing, and less aggressive than coffee, but that gentleness can be deceptive. Black tea and many energy teas still contain caffeine, and they also contain tannins, compounds that give tea its bitterness and can interfere with fluid and mineral absorption. When tea is sipped continuously throughout the day, it acts like a slow leak. Caffeine increases urine output, tannins reduce absorption, and fluid loss accumulates quietly. Because tea feels hydrating, people assume they're doing fine. But over time, they may notice fatigue, headaches, dry mouth, or sluggishness, and respond by drinking more tea. The cycle continues. Tea doesn't need to disappear from your life, it simply needs company. Alternating tea with water, switching some cups to decaffeinated or herbal versions, and intentionally drinking water between cups helps prevent slow dehydration. Tea can be enjoyed, but it shouldn't be the backbone of fluid intake. As water leaves the bloodstream, blood volume drops. Lower volume means the heart has to pump harder. This is especially noticeable in people with blood pressure issues, heart rhythm sensitivity, diabetes or insulin resistance. You don't need to ban juice, you need to tame it. Here's how. Dilute juice with water, half and half. Keep portions small. Always pair juice with a glass of water. Juice should be a flavour, not a fluid strategy. Juice and smoothies present a different challenge. They're often associated with health, vitamins, and natural ingredients. But juice behaves very differently in the body than whole fruit. Even juice with no added sugar contains the sugar of multiple fruits without the fibre that slows absorption. When sugar enters the bloodstream quickly, the body must dilute it. It does this by pulling water out of the bloodstream and into the urine. The sweeter the drink, the more water the body uses to process it. This means juice can actually worsen dehydration, especially when consumed alone. As water leaves the bloodstream, blood volume drops, and the heart has to work harder. This effect is particularly noticeable in people with blood pressure concerns, heart rhythm sensitivity, or diabetes. Juice doesn't need to be banned, but it does need to be tamed. Diluting it with water, keeping portions small, and always pairing it with a glass of water transforms juice from a fluid strategy into a flavour accent. Cocoa and flavoured drink mixes often show up in the evening when comfort matters most. Many of these mixes contain both sugar and sodium. Sugar pulls water out of the bloodstream to manage glucose levels, while sodium pulls water out of cells and holds it in the wrong compartments. Together, they disrupt fluid balance and increase thirst later. When cocoa is consumed late at night, fluid timing shifts, nighttime urination increases, and morning dehydration worsens. People wake up dry, stiff, and lightheaded without understanding why. Choosing lower sugar options, drinking water alongside cocoa, and avoiding late-night mugs allows comfort without cost. Protein shakes and meal replacements are increasingly common, especially among older adults focused on preserving muscle. Protein is essential, but it comes with a hidden water requirement. Protein metabolism requires fluid, and many shakes contain added minerals that increase kidney workload. When shakes replace water instead of accompanying it, dehydration occurs quietly. The body uses water to process protein, but no new water comes in. Drinking a full glass of water before and after a protein shake, choosing moderate protein amounts, and never letting shakes replace water entirely ensures that protein supports muscle without stressing circulation. If there's one principle to remember, it's this: do not swap water for these drinks. They can exist, they can be enjoyed, but they cannot replace water. This brings us to the rule that changes everything for most people, the one-for-one rule. Hydrate first, then enjoy. Before any coffee, tea, juice, cocoa, or smoothie, drink one full glass of water. No counting, no tracking, no pressure. You're simply starting hydrated instead of trying to catch up later. This works especially well after 60 because it supports blood volume, stabilizes blood pressure, calms heart rhythm, and improves energy and focus without removing anything you enjoy. It's not about restriction, it's about order, and sometimes order is enough to change everything. When most people think about improving their health, they assume it requires dramatic changes. New routines, strict plans, complicated rules, or giving up the things they enjoy. But very often, the most meaningful improvements come from something far simpler, something so basic that it's easy to overlook. Hydration is one of those things, and not hydration in the sense of tracking ounces all day long or carrying a giant bottle everywhere, but hydration in the sense of timing, sequence, and respect for how the body actually works, especially as we age. The way you start your morning sets the tone for your entire day, not just mentally, but physiologically. After hours of sleep, your body naturally wakes up slightly dehydrated. You lose fluid overnight through breathing, through the skin, and through normal metabolic processes. Blood volume is a bit lower, circulation is slower, and the heart has to work just a little harder to move fluid through the body. This is normal, but how you respond to it matters. Many people reach immediately for coffee or tea, not realizing that they're asking their heart and blood vessels to handle stimulation before they've replaced what was lost. Over time, that pattern can quietly contribute to symptoms people often dismiss as just aging. That's why the morning reset begins with something intentionally simple, drinking 12 to 16 ounces of water as soon as you wake up. Not later, not after coffee, not once you've gotten going, but right at the beginning of the day, before stimulation, before decisions, before the body is asked to perform. This isn't about forcing yourself to chug water or pushing through discomfort to meet a quota. It's about gently restoring balance after a long stretch without fluid. Overnight, your body loses water through breathing, through the skin, and through the basic work of staying alive. Blood volume runs a little lower in the morning, circulation is slightly reduced, and the nervous system is still in a quiet, protected state. That first glass of water replaces what was lost, helps re-expand blood volume, and sends a powerful signal to your body that it's safe to wake up fully. Circulation begins to move more easily, the nervous system shifts out of protective mode, and digestion starts to come online. For many people, this single habit softens morning dizziness, reduces headaches, and clears that foggy, heavy feeling that lingers even after a full night's sleep. Of course, not everyone enjoys plain water first thing in the morning, and that's not a failure, it's simply preference. The goal here is hydration, not discipline, and those two are not the same thing. Adding a squeeze of lemon or orange can make water feel brighter and more inviting, especially for people who struggle with appetite or alertness early in the day. A splash of mineral water can add a subtle texture and provide trace minerals that support fluid balance. A very small pinch of salt can help the body hold on to the water you're drinking, which can be especially helpful for people who tend to run on the lower side of blood pressure or who feel lightheaded when standing. None of these additions are mandatory, and none need to be measured or perfected. Their only purpose is to make the habit feel easier and more natural, because the habit that feels easiest is the one that lasts. Once that first glass of water is in place, the next part of the morning reset is often the most surprising, waiting 30 to 60 minutes before having caffeine. This is the part many people resist at first, largely because caffeine has become intertwined with comfort, alertness, and routine. But it's also where many notice the most immediate change. Caffeine is a stimulant. It increases alertness, raises heart rate slightly, and can increase fluid loss in some individuals, particularly when consumed on an empty stomach. When caffeine enters the system before hydration, those effects can feel sharp or exaggerated. People describe feeling jittery, unsteady, lightheaded, or unusually aware of their heartbeat. When caffeine comes after hydration instead of before it, those same drinks often feel smoother and more supportive. Energy rises without the spike and crash. Focus improves without tension. The heart feels steadier. Many people are genuinely surprised by how different their usual coffee or tea feels with this small shift, even if they were skeptical going in. Once the morning reset is established, hydration no longer needs constant attention throughout the day. In fact, the most sustainable approach is to stop thinking in terms of rules altogether and start thinking in terms of habits and rhythms. Instead of asking yourself how much water you've had or whether you're doing it correctly, you simply create patterns that support hydration naturally. Smaller cups instead of oversized mugs prevent overwhelming the system all at once. Longer gaps between caffeinated or sweetened drinks give the body time to process stimulation and rebalance. And drinking water between beverages helps maintain blood volume and keeps circulation steady, reducing the subtle stress placed on the heart and blood vessels. A helpful way to visualize this rhythm is with a simple sequence: sip, then water, then sip again. Nothing is forbidden, nothing is restricted. You're simply creating space between stimulating drinks and giving your body what it needs in between. One of the easiest ways to make this automatic is to keep a glass of water physically next to your coffee or tea mug. When you finish your drink, you refill the water first. That small physical action removes the need for willpower or decision-making. It gently slows the pace of intake and introduces hydration without effort. Over time, this becomes second nature, something you do without thinking, much like the original routine once was. Another powerful way to support hydration without constant monitoring is to use what can be thought of as water anchors. These are specific moments in the day when dehydration tends to creep in quietly, often without obvious thirst. The first anchor is waking up, which you've already addressed with the morning reset. The second is mid-morning, when caffeine has been in the system for a while and attention shifts toward tasks, appointments, or responsibilities rather than bodily signals. The third is mid-afternoon, when energy often dips and the instinct is to reach for another stimulant instead of fluid. By intentionally drinking water at these anchor points, you prevent the gradual slide into dehydration that often shows up later as fatigue, headaches, irritability, or that vague sense of feeling off without knowing why. One reason hydration is so often overlooked is that the symptoms of mild dehydration are easily mistaken for normal aging. Lightheadedness in the morning is frequently accepted as something that just happens with age. A racing heart after coffee is brushed off as sensitivity. Dry mouth, darker urine, headaches, leg cramps, afternoon fatigue, and waking up at night to use the bathroom are all commonly viewed as inevitable. But when hydration improves, many of these symptoms soften or fade entirely. That's not coincidence. It's the body responding to support it hadn't been getting. When blood volume is restored and circulation is supported, the heart doesn't need to work as hard, and the nervous system can settle into a more stable rhythm. What matters most in this process is not perfection, but patterns. No one hydrates perfectly every day, and there's no benefit in trying to. The real progress shows up in trends over time. Mornings may begin to feel steadier. Energy may become more consistent through the afternoon. Headaches may appear less frequently or with less intensity. Sleep may improve because nighttime bathroom trips decrease. These changes tend to happen gradually, which makes them easy to overlook if you're only watching for dramatic results. Paying attention to trends allows you to notice improvement without pressure or self-criticism. It's also important to acknowledge that hydration is not one size fits all. Certain medications, including diuretics, ACE inhibitors, ARBs, and beta blockers, can affect fluid balance. If you take these medications, it's wise to discuss appropriate fluid intake with your clinician rather than guessing. Conditions such as heart failure or kidney disease may require specific fluid limits, and those limits should always take priority. Diabetes can increase dehydration risk, particularly when blood sugar is elevated, making thoughtful hydration even more important. Low blood pressure may benefit from pairing fluids with salt, but only under medical guidance. Personalization matters, and safety always comes first. One guideline that applies to nearly everyone is avoiding taking medications with coffee, tea, or sweet drinks. Water is always the safest choice. This protects medication absorption and reduces unnecessary strain on the body. The hydration approach can and should be adjusted when needed, but it shouldn't be abandoned altogether. Supporting fluid balance remains foundational, even when medical considerations are involved. At its core, this approach comes down to a simple truth: hydrate first, then enjoy. You're not removing pleasure from your routine or turning daily life into a set of rules. You're simply sequencing things in a way that supports your body rather than challenges it. The 1-for-1 rule, 1 glass of water before other drinks, helps maintain circulation, stabilize energy, and keep the heart calm without strict tracking or deprivation. It respects the realities of aging without framing them as limitations. Small habits, when repeated day after day, have a quiet kind of power that often goes unnoticed at first. They don't demand attention, they don't come with dramatic before and after moments, and they don't announce themselves as breakthroughs. Instead, they work quietly in the background, shaping how the body feels over time. Hydrating before your first drink, spacing beverages throughout the day, and using simple anchors to stay supported may seem almost too ordinary to matter. But these small choices influence circulation, nervous system balance, and energy in ways that compound gently. The body responds not to intensity, but to consistency. And over time, that consistency can translate into steadier mornings, calmer afternoons, fewer uncomfortable sensations, and a greater sense of ease moving through the day. What often surprises people is that these changes don't arrive all at once. There's no single moment when everything feels different. Instead, there's a gradual shift. Mornings feel less rushed inside the body. Energy doesn't drop as sharply in the afternoon. The heart feels less reactive, and focus becomes easier to sustain. These improvements don't call attention to themselves, which is why they're easy to underestimate. But when you look back after weeks or months, you may realize that you're simply feeling better more often, more comfortable, more steady, more at home in your own body. As you begin to apply this approach, it can help to start with awareness rather than effort. Notice which drink you instinctively reach for first each day. Notice how automatic that moment is. Then, without judgment or pressure, experiment with pausing just long enough to hydrate before it. That brief pause is not about restriction. It's an act of care. It's a way of telling your body that its needs come first, even in the midst of familiar routines. That one small choice can set a different tone for the entire day, creating a foundation of support rather than asking your body to catch up later. Over time, these moments of care begin to stack. They shape the rhythm of your day in subtle but meaningful ways. You may find yourself feeling more resilient, less reactive, and more confident in your ability to support your health without extremes or rigid rules. And if you'd like to continue exploring simple, heart-safe habits that fit into real life, habits that respect both your body and your routines, stay connected. There's always another small step that can make a meaningful difference, and you don't have to take it alone.